Father, when I grow up, I want to drive a big army tank. Well, son, he answered, I won't stand in your way. But too many are standing in the way of others. The world finds no fault with Christ. Why is it that so few become Christians? Because the Christians aren't like Christ. They're standing in the way of sinners. You're a bridge or a barrier. You attract or repel. You draw people to the Lord or you drive them away. The Bible says, blessed is the man that stands not in the way of sinners.
For your free copy of Dr. Guido's daily devotional, Seeds from the Sower, write The Sower, Mentor, Georgia, 30439.
Visit us on the web at the
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Friends, we thank you for joining us today, and we have multiple critical issues to bring to your attention today. I hope you can listen carefully to what's being said on the broadcast today. And to preface it, I want you to listen to these recent headlines from the Western Journal. House Judiciary says Pfizer engaged in massive scandal regarding COVID vaccine trial data. From LifeSiteNews.com, breaking, Trump administration to pull COVID jabs from recommended schedule. From the Focal Points, U.S. FDA and CDC delayed health advisory on COVID-19 mRNA vaccine myocarditis for months, failed to issue black box warning for years. Another story from them. Worldwide embalmer survey reveals striking rise in white fibrous clots following COVID-19 vaccination. From Slay News, top HHS medical advisor blows whistle. mRNA vaccines cause cancer. Another story from them indicates Johns Hopkins study of 1.9 million women confirm COVID vaccines depopulate. From Children's Health Defense, teens who got COVID vaccine had 23% higher risk of autoimmune disease. From the Epoch Times, China residents report new wave of COVID-19 as infection rates double. And this story yesterday from the Epoch Times, World Health Organization approves pandemic agreement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you thought the discussion and all the information about COVID and the shot was over, guess again. All of these headlines are from the past 7 days. And just within the last couple of hours, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson started a hearing entitled The Corruption of Science and Federal Health Agencies, How Health Officials Downplayed and Hid Myocarditis and Other Adverse Events Associated with the COVID-19 Vaccines. So what in the world is going on? Joining us today, we welcome back Dr. Elizabeth Lee Velite, President and CEO of Truth for Health Foundation. Since February of 2020, she has been part of the team of frontline physicians treating COVID early at home. With Dr. Peter McCullough, she is the co-author and editor of the Guide to COVID Early Treatment, Options to Stay Out of Hospital and Save Your Life. She's a past director of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. She received her medical degree and internship in internal medicine at Eastern Virginia Medical School and completed special training at Johns Hopkins. She's speaking today as an independent physician. She is not a spokesperson for any healthcare system or pharmaceutical company or insurance plan or political party, but she is a patient advocate. Dr. Velite, welcome back here to Crosstalk.
Thank you so much, Jim. And I am still in medical practice in addition to running the foundation, so I'm actually treating patients with all of these complications that you just talked about.
You know, Dr. Velite, we are literally being bombarded with so many issues unfolding in a short period of time, and I should say that many of these issues you began warning about in the very early days of COVID-19 and now just coming to light on so many different news sources.
Well, you're exactly right. And we were one of the first organizations, Truth for Health Foundation, had the first press conference, August 4th, 2021, international press conference, broadcast on LifeSite News to stop the shot campaign. And we warned about all of these problems in the earliest days of the vaccine rollout. even prior to the Biden administration imposing the unlawful vaccine mandates on the military and pushing mandates through employers and the airlines and the colleges and the universities. So we really have had a devastating time, and we were trying to warn the public, but combination of censorship and lies from the federal agencies meant that those of us telling the truth were effectively sidelined, and the lies perpetuated. And finally, under the Trump administration, the truth is coming out. That we've known, you've known, I've known, our experts have known since before the shots were rolled out, and we tried to warn people.
So let's begin. I mean, just today, Senator Johnson holding this hearing and also releasing 2,400 pages of records detailing the failure of the federal health agencies to properly warn the public of the risk of myocarditis-related heart inflammation conditions following the mRNA COVID-19 vaccination. Again, this is something that you have warned about, but it is certainly troubling as you're bringing forth testimony from various individuals here that the federal government, this is under the Biden administration, Doctor, they failed to warn the public of the risk of myocarditis.
Well, that's exactly right. Now, we knew the signals were there very quickly in 2021 when the shots started rolling out, really to the public in January 2021. And within a month, the cardiac complications the signals of risk were there. And I know many of us, I know we were speaking out on it, Dr. Peter McCullough was, and in those early months, we were trying to let people know that these were experimental. They had serious risk, and COVID illness was a flu-like syndrome that had a 98.9% survival rate if you treated it early. So it's just unconscionable that our own taxpayer-funded, our tax money was going to federal agencies that were lying to us and allowing people to die as a result of their push for this experimental mRNA gene therapy shot.
Yeah. We certainly are going to look forward to the information coming out from those hearings taking place today. But, Doctor, also this from Children's Health Defense, and there is, according to findings of a peer-reviewed study published just last week in Pediatric Rheumatology, children and adolescents who received at least one COVID-19 shot had a 23% higher risk of developing autoimmune disease compared to unvaccinated children. Comment on that.
Well, that is what you would expect when you're injecting a foreign protein into a human body. The body starts ramping up a response to it, and then in the ongoing production of spike protein, because the mRNA is reverse transcribed into the DNA, and the DNA then directs the ongoing manufacture of the spike protein, which is a foreign protein. And so the more that there is ongoing production of the foreign protein, the spike protein, the more that people's immune system are overreactive. And that translates into what we call autoimmune disorders, although it was triggered by the injection.
Dr. Vliet, another article here from Slate News, and we've got a lot of ground to cover here. Major new study from the world-renowned scientists at Johns Hopkins University confirmed that COVID vaccines, and that's in quotes, are reducing human population by lowering birth rate. This is a peer-reviewed study led by a Dr. Dorji, the most comprehensive evaluation to date of the association between COVID vaccination and reproductive disturbances. The massive investigation included a staggering 1.9 million women from around the world, and the study warns of significant risk to women's fertility, birth rates following the COVID vaccination, aligning with previous warnings of reproductive destruction caused by the injections. Again, I can hear your voice echoing, warning about these things a long time ago, but now here we have the peer-reviewed study, pointing to this very matter.
You're exactly right. And it was Dr. Mike Yeadon and Dr. Wolfgang Vodard from Germany, Dr. Yeadon from the UK, and Dr. Vodard from Germany in the fall of 2020, who reported on the fact that there was reproductive harm potential from these mRNA gene therapy shots for several reasons. But they knew 15 years prior to rollout, and I want your listeners to understand this, because this shows intent to harm the public, knowing there was reproductive damage that would lead to declining fertility and declining birth rates. 15 years prior to rollout of the shot, they knew that the lipid nanoparticle coating on the mRNA caused damage to the ovaries and testicle in every animal species studied. There were 6 different animal species that they had studied. In all of them, ovaries and testicles were damaged. And they went ahead with that technology and the use of these lipid nanoparticle coatings anyway. So it goes to intent to harm. And Dr. Yeadon was warning about that. That was when I met him in early 2021. That was what led us to start the Stop the Shots campaigns, because of the damage to the ovaries and testicle. So that means all of the young reproductive age men and women who got these shots, the adolescents, the pre-pubescent children that got the shots, had their gonads damaged by the injections. So you're looking at a generational effect, and you're looking at the fact that not only now are women coming into their reproductive time having fewer babies, they have a greater fertility problem, but then there are declining live births because the fetus is damaged. It's just absolutely catastrophic for the human population. We're looking at the potential of a population collapse, and the left, the radicals, the Democrats, are still talking about overpopulation. We are looking at serious population declines all across Europe, the industrialized Western countries that are heavily vaccinated.
And I can hear the likes of the Bill Gates of this world just saying, yes, that's so great. I remember the quotes from him. If we do a real good job with vaccinations, we will save lives and reduce the population.
Exactly. And who the heck gave Bill Gates the right to decide God's decision of how many people there are on the planet?
Exactly. And so we're seeing this happen. And, Doctor, I'm confident in your practice you're seeing the effects of this as well.
Oh, no question. I've already seen menstrual cycle erratic cycles, anovulatory cycles, difficulty with uterine bleeding because of the damage to the vascular uterine lining that's needed to sustain pregnancies. Now, I don't treat pregnant patients. I'm not an OB, so I don't see the problems during pregnancy, but anyone can look up Dr. James Thorpe, who's treated thousands of high-risk pregnancy patients. He's maternal fetal medicine, and he's been warning about this from the beginning as well, and the adverse effects on pregnancy. And Jim, we have never, in the history of the world vaccination programs, had a shot that was designed to cross the blood-brain barrier and damage the brain directly, or across the placental barrier, which is to protect the developing baby, and damages the baby because it can cross that protected barrier.
We're going to have to break right here. Dr. Elizabeth Lee Valette with us on the program today, and we'll be back in 1 minute on Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation seminar speaker with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, where do comets come from?
Chris, the short-period comets, like Halley's Comet, can make only a few trips around the sun before they completely disintegrate. Yet there are a number of short-period comets. Obviously, to support a billions of years old solar system, evolutionists need an inexhaustible supply of short-period comets. Thus, they had proposed a belt of comets called the Kuiper Belt orbiting the sun near Neptune. They had no evidence of such a zone of comets, but figured it must be there to salvage their theory. Well, now we have the telescopes and spacecraft able to search this zone, and we found less than 4% of what they need. Thus, this dreamland of comets needed to salvage Big Bang ideas has been disproved. What hasn't been disproved is the creation story. That's the one that's given back in Genesis.
For more on creation, visit our website at www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network, and though you've heard the warnings for years, now we have the truth about COVID shots being revealed here through many, many different sources. Dr. Elizabeth Lee Valite, our guest today on the program, President and CEO of Truth for Health Foundation. She also is an active practicing medical physician and covering just a number of the issues from just the past week. Dr. Valite, I have this story as well from Slay News. It's regarding a senior medical advisor at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Stephen Hatfill, just blowing the whistle to the public about the deadly impact of the COVID mRNA vaccines, and always vaccines is put in quotes in these articles. He raised the alarm after the injections in an explosive new interview. He's a world-renowned virologist, a biodefense expert, and currently is serving as special advisor in this administration for strategic preparedness and response under Robert F. Kennedy. He has seen the cover-ups firsthand, and now he's warning that American people that the mRNA vaccines are a dangerous experiment. He's raising the alarm about the presence of the cancer-causing SV40 enhancer in the injections. He warns that the SV40 enhancer is amplifying genes that can turn the bodies of the COVID vaccinated into tumor factories. That's troubling.
Yes, and I know Dr. Stephen Hatfill. We both are in AAPS. He has been an incredible spokesperson on so many fronts, including during the Ebola crisis. And I was actually working with him in the background in the summer of 2020 and helping with information that he had asked about. And I'm very pleased to see that he is speaking out so forcefully now. In fact, I'd like to get a link to that interview you mentioned because I want our audience to know about his work. He's absolutely right. And this was something that we warned about in the summer of 2020 potentially, and again in throughout 2021 and afterwards, that in addition to the SV40 issue that he's bringing up, there were multiple ways that the mRNA gene therapy shots were actually turning off our body's tumor suppressor genes. We have God-given tumor suppressor genes that are part of our immune system that provide their surveillance and help reduce the risk of cancer cells developing into full-blown tumors. And P53 is one of them, but there are many others that are turned off by the COVID shot. Again, they knew that prior to developing this technology and went ahead with it. It speaks to a truly evil intent because they knew the damage. They knew the spike protein damage. They knew the lipid nanoparticle damage. They knew the tumor suppressor effects. They knew SV40 was there. They knew the DNA contamination was there. Jim, all of this was known by Pfizer and Moderna, AstraZeneca, and J&J, and they all went ahead with it anyway.
You know, what's also interesting is looking at, and Dr. McCullough, through Focal Points here, had this headline: Worldwide Embalmer Survey Reveals Striking Rise in White Fibrous Clots Following the COVID-19 Vaccination. And it's large-scale investigations, post-vaccine clotting abnormalities. And the latest worldwide embalmer white fibrous clot survey, a multi-year investigation documenting the sudden and widespread appearance of the white fibrous clots in the deceased, draws from the testimony of embalmers around the globe. I guess there were some 301 respondents to this, but 83% reported seeing these large white fibrous clots in corpses during 2024. That's even up from 73% in 2023. They stated that they had never observed these clots before 2021. That coincides with when the COVID-19 shots began. And then 78% reported seeing signs of microclotting, described as dirty blood or coffee grounds, in about 22% of cases, compared to less than 5% before the year 2020. Troubling results.
Jim, that fits exactly with what I've been seeing in my own living patients who have elevated D-dimer blood tests. Now, most doctors are not checking the blood test called D-dimer, which is a marker for the fragments of blood clots. And when that marker is elevated, it means that the body is forming micro blood clots, which can then become large blood clots and cause pulmonary emboli, brain strokes, heart attacks, DVT in the legs, these long blood clots in the vessels that the embalmers are talking about. And what I've been just screaming about, trying to warn people, is insist that your doctor, if you got the shot, insist that your doctor order the D-dimer and fibrinogen blood tests to look at whether you're at risk and treat it before it becomes a major clot that kills you. And doctors don't want to know a connection between the shots and the damage, and they don't do these tests. And in addition, most patients don't know that doctors have been paid incentive bonuses by the government and insurance companies to vaccinate as many of their patients as possible, and they were paid higher bonuses on the COVID shot. So patients have to be their own advocates. Your doctor is not doing it for you.
Let's hit another topic here. This came out from Western Journal, and it's the House Judiciary Committee, led by Republicans, has accused Pfizer of engaging in a massive scandal related to the COVID-19 vaccine trial data, alleging the company deliberately delayed results to influence the 2020 presidential election. Allegations are stemming from a letter sent by Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, a Republican from Ohio, to Pfizer CEO Dr. Albert Bourla in May 15, 2025, demanding documents and information. According to a post on X by the House Judiciary GOP, new information suggests that senior Pfizer executives conspired to delay the COVID-19 vaccine trial clinical testing to influence the 2020 election. The same post highlighted that one executive was so scared about this being investigated that he asked to be relocated to Canada. The account called the situation by Congressman Jordan a massive scandal. Your thoughts?
Well, it is a massive scandal, and we saw that happen in real time because they had anticipated having the data available prior to the election, and then suddenly, at the last minute, they announced a delay. And I said at the time in some of our programs and interviews, they did that on purpose. And sure enough, here we now have it confirmed, and thank goodness that Congressman Jim Jordan is calling it out and exposing the scandal. I really think, in my opinion, Pfizer is guilty, and has been earlier in my career with other drugs, but I think they were guilty of massive crimes against humanity. They covered up the fraud in the clinical trials. They covered up the known complications. There were 9 pages of adverse events from their clinical trials they covered up, including death, including stillbirths, including myocarditis. and they delayed the release of the data to influence the election. You could go down the list of crimes that were committed by this pharmaceutical company, and in my opinion, they literally are crimes against humanity.
I understand now under the Trump administration, the CDC is removing these COVID shots, really abortion-tainted COVID shots, from the recommended schedule for children, teens, and pregnant women. Is that correct?
Well, as far as I can tell, I'm reading the same news headlines you are, and that has been necessary. In fact, they never should have been added to the childhood schedule. And we all know that children were not at risk of dying from COVID. I just think it was, again, criminal crimes against humanity that they put it on the schedule in the first place. But again, that was done under the Biden administration. It wasn't done under President Trump's administration, which ended at the end of 2020. So when the shots rolled out and the mandate started in 2021. So I think that's critically important. Also, I wanted to comment, the one thing I do think is a brilliant strategy, the FDA, I've had doctors on my side all upset that they just the FDA announced an approval of a new version from Novavax. And people read the headlines and got angry, but if you read what the announcement said and what the conditions were, Dr. McCary was quite clear that the conditions that they put on that approval require tens of millions of dollars of studies to be done by the company, and that means I just think this is a really brilliant strategy, because what they're doing is putting the burden on the pharmaceutical companies financially and time to do the studies that should have been done all along and never were, and to add the placebo control group as a requirement for approval of vaccines, which never was done. And I think what we're going to see happen is, instead of it becoming such a political issue of, oh my God, you're going to undo the vaccination program and the Democrats can claim all these lives lost, I think we're going to see the pharmaceutical companies be priced out of it by virtue of the fact that they won't do the safety studies because they're too costly. And then we're going to see the real motive is just profits over people.
Dr. Elizabeth Lee Valide, our guest here today, and Epoch Times reporting China residents are reporting a new wave of COVID-19 infection rates are doubling during April. That's according to the latest report from the communist regime's health authorities. Meanwhile, since early May, Chinese citizens across the country have been reporting a new wave of respiratory infections, causing hospitals to become overcrowded again. Are we about to see COVID-19 2.0?
No, I don't think so. This is a coronavirus that's been present in the population for all of our lives, and they're exaggerating the risk. It's very treatable, and I don't really trust much of any information that comes out of communist government officials in China. A lot of it's designed to be fear-mongering to try and push people to take more vaccines. There's all kinds of treatment for these coronavirus flu-like illnesses.
And you've got information on your website for that.
Yes, absolutely. We have the updated version of the COVID early treatment guide, and that applies to all of the viral illnesses. We have fact sheets on avian flu treatment, on amyloidosis treatment, on monkeypox, Marburg, all of these illnesses that they keep threatening are coming at us. We have existing, safe, older medications that can be pulled together and combined in ways that help treat these illnesses quickly, early, at home.
The website, truthforhealth.org, correct?
Yes.
Truthforhealth.org. Friends, we're going to take a quick break, and I've got one more main topic I want to make sure we get in today, and that is about the pandemic agreement, the treaty just passed by the World Health Organization. But if you'd like to start getting on our phones here today to speak with Dr. Valide, our phone number here, 800-733-9829. That's 800 888-733-9829. We'll be back in a minute here on Crosstalk.
There is a movement to propel humanity toward an advanced level of existence. Those seeking to change the culture of society are on a rapid trajectory, aggressively touting the extremely powerful capabilities of AI.
Artificial intelligence and transhumanism.
The ultimate goal of the elite is to obtain immortality and become gods. In the book, Artificial Intelligence, Transhumanism and the De-Evolution of Democracy, pastor and Bible prophecy speaker Dr. Richard Schmitz unfolds his extensive research and documents revealing information unveiling the agenda of those pursuing this technology for evil. You'll also see how these technological advancements fit hand in glove with biblical prophecy and one known as Antichrist. The book, Artificial Intelligence, available for a donation of $18. Call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. Dr. Elizabeth Lee Valite, our guest today. The website, truthforhealth.org. That's truthforhealth.org. And speaking of truth, we're talking about the truth about COVID shots being revealed. And Dr. Valite has been talking about this for years, ladies and gentlemen. She's been many programs, interviews that we've had with her here on Crosstalk. And certainly she has been doing this through her means of outreach as well, and through blogs and through her website and interviews that she has done. And certainly, friends, you've heard it on Crosstalk, but now we're seeing all the media circling around this. Senator Johnson just holding another hearing today on this issue. Now, Dr. Valite, just within the last day, the headline started screaming about the World Health Organization adopting the pandemic treaty. They're calling it the pandemic agreement, but it binds the members of countries to a unified WHO-directed response to future pandemics, raising concerns about national sovereignty and global control. We spent many a program warning about this. Is the U.S. in, or are we exempt from this because of the president's executive order? Where do things stand?
Well, we are not yet exempt. America is not out of the woods on this because President Trump's executive order takes effect in 2026. And last I checked, we're in 2025. So that means that people need to speak out with their elected representatives and push for America to immediately remove ourselves from the WHO because of this pandemic treaty. And the significance of this is enormous because all of the tyranny, the hospital deaths, the mandates, all of the lockdowns, all of the business and economy disruptions, school disruptions, vaccine mandates that took place under COVID were the result of that WHO agreement and the legal framework that was triggered by Tedros using the legal phrase public health emergency of international concern. And that triggered the 2005 International Health Regulatory Agreements that all of these countries had signed that put the WHO in charge of the public health response and, in fact, was also the basis for the framework where the military, the judiciary, law enforcement, and public health were all merged in what Todd Callender and I have done programs on, and he described the legal framework as militarized medical martial law. And it was all of these legal agreements that were done years ago, 2005, when the PrEP Act was also signed, and the International Health Regulatory Agreement, and then Biden administration signed even more draconian amendments to the 2005 IHR, and that is triggered by the WHO using the term public health emergency of international concern. which is what COVID was. That's why we had the tyranny. That's why we had the lockdowns and the travel restrictions and the business restrictions. It's why churches were closed and bars were left open. These were all designed to disrupt human freedom, to disrupt our lives and economy, and cause as much damage as possible. And we still are vulnerable to that. Now, I don't think President Trump would go along with it, but at any moment that there is another administration, America is still vulnerable to those same regulatory agreements and the WHO control. We have got to get out of the WHO, no question about it.
Now, friends, keep in mind there was a consensus vote that took place during the Assembly yesterday. This is a day after a committee meeting in which 124 countries voted in favor, 0 objected. 0 countries objected, folks. 11 abstained. And though it assures that this treaty affirms, the principle, the sovereignty of states in addressing public health matters, it calls for a one-state response directed by who? Yes, who? The World Health Organization to future health crises as well.
Well, and one man, Jim, with no medical training.
Yeah.
Tedros is a Marxist dictator from Ethiopia with 0 medical training, who even overrode his medical experts when he declared monkeypox an international pandemic.
Right.
And his medical experts did not think monkeypox rose to that, and Tedros, with no medical training, overruled them. I mean, this is just devastating damage to the world and to individual countries being able to make decisions for their own people, because there are different risk factors in every country, and there are different issues, genetically, ethnically, environmentally, and this is absolutely... It's an evil attack on humanity that they are trying to dictate health response in all of these countries around the world from one non-medically trained individual.
Wow. Friends, our phone lines are packed. We'll start working our way through these calls. As soon as you hear somebody hang up, that's your opportunity to call. We're going to begin with Lisa in our home city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Lisa, you're on the air.
Hi. Hey, I wanted to know, is there a connection with any of the shots and autism or people on the spectrum?
Doctor, we know Mr. Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy, is going to be, he's doing a study on issues like this, isn't he?
Yes, and I think we have suspected the evidence was showing that connection for decades, and it's been censored, it's been suppressed. The government agencies did not want that information out. They persecuted doctors who tried to alert the public. Dr. Andy Wakefield is a great example, and he has been vindicated. I don't think there's any question there's a connection. There are other connections in autism. For example, some of the endocrine disruption that's occurring with food additives and with environmental endocrine disruptors. I've seen some of my own patients who are on the autistic spectrum, some severe, some less severe, who have severe endocrine disruptions. And many times some of the behavioral aspects of autism can be improved, if not totally relieved, with proper treatment of the underlying endocrine disorder. So I think there are many factors.
Lisa, thank you for the call, and we're just not going to do lots of interactions, so we're getting many callers in. Colleen in Venice, Florida, you're on the air.
Hi. My brother was 57 years old, was one of the sudden deaths after Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So I see the realism in all of this. My question is, I've been hearing that mRNA is being injected into cattle. Is it possible that we are eating that and don't know it?
Hey, thank you.
Yes, that's a good question, and I'm so sorry for your brother's death and the fact that everyone was lied to about the safety of these shots. Yes, they are pushing mRNA shots into the beef cattle industry. Unfortunately, some of the ranchers are giving in to the pressure to do that. Others are trying to stand firm. We, the public, have got to stand firm and speak out against it. They already started mRNA shots in the pork industry in 2018, and the public was not told of that. So, yes, if you're eating pork, all of the pork in the United States has been vaccinated with the mRNA technology since 2018. So I would encourage you to be careful about eating pork.
Thank you, Colleen. Our number 800-733-9829. Louise in Castro Valley, California, you're on the air.
Yes, I just want to mention that when I was going to my doctor for appointments during COVID, I never wanted to take the shot. He always mentioned that I should take the shot. And so finally, at the last time, I got tired of it, and I said, no, I don't want the shot today. And so he goes, well, I'll make an appointment, but I don't think you'll be back. So he actually was forcing me, to try to take the shot. So I didn't take it, and thank God I'm well.
Well, thank you for your call.
Well, you listen to God's guidance and your intuition, and that's God-given too. So you are very wise, and I'm glad you stood strong against the pressure.
Thank you for your call, Louise. We have a couple lines open, 800-733-9829. And, Doctor, you mentioned that there was financial incentive for medical doctors to give the shot?
Oh, yes. I've seen the letters from insurance carriers. Now, I'm not contracted with insurance carriers. My contract is with God and with my patients. But I have seen the letters that insurance carriers, Anthem, for example, is one, Blue Cross Blue Shield is another. There are others that have sent letters to doctors letting them know what the incentive payments are based upon the percentage of patients in their practice who are getting the COVID shot.
Wow. Let's go to Lee next in Michigan. Hi, Lee, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon. First, Jim, I want to thank you for your courage, and I want to thank the doctor and her and the FLCC doctors that stood up against the tremendous forces of the government trying to take their license away. In some cases they did. I think they got them back, I hope. Dr. Ryan Cole, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Peter McCullough, and your guest today. Thank you.
Thank you for the call here, Lee.
Also,
you had a question.
I wanted to say that there was a doctor in British Columbia, I believe, who did a 100% D-dimer test on his patients with and without the COVID vaccine, and he found that it wasn't rare. It was every single one that got the vaccine had an elevated D-dimer result. That's my question.
Okay.
Well, you're quite right there. I have seen the majority of my COVID vaccinated patients have elevated D-dimers because I'm checking everybody, but not 100%. There are some where it did not rise, and I think that's fortunate. But the problem is you don't know who has an elevated D-dimer and who doesn't, and who's at risk for worsening blood clots unless you do the blood test. And it's a simple blood test. It does have to be ordered by a doctor. You can't order it yourself through some of the self-pay lab portals that exist, Request a Test and others. But it does need to be done if you've gotten the shot, and the more shots and boosters you've gotten, the more important it is to have that blood test.
Lee, thank you for the call. Vernon in Minnesota, you're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering now, you were just saying this doctor you have there, that this mRNA, they've been pushing since 2018 into pork. And
yes.
My other question is, I'm not a suing kind of guy who should go to jail or whatever for this, but I sure hope there's somebody that has the power to make these people punish the government, our own government, for what went on. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. And we're up against a break. I'll have Dr. Vliet respond to that right after the break. Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, and lines are packed here today. 800-733-9829 is the number, though. Our guest website, truthforhealth.org. That's truthforhealth.org. 4is.org. 4 is FOR. And we'll be back in 1 minute here on Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewreport.com. Texas, Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. There are 4 faithful pastors, along with many civilian citizens, that are holding a rally at the Capitol. It's a Judeo-Christian rally. It's to counter the Islamist groups that are coming and taking over Texas. Texas has clearly been targeted, and the Islamic countries have billions of dollars to use the media, pad the pockets of politicians, and the budget shortfalls of counties and cities. Texas has clearly been targeted with compounds, Islamic compounds, mosque, schools. They're teaching, because we sent in an undercover former federal agent last week, they're teaching things like child marriage and waging war against the Christian and the Jews. If they can take down Texas, they can take down any state.
Guest today is a practicing physician and is president and CEO of Truth for Health Foundation, Dr. Elizabeth Lee Vliet. Dr. Vliet, that last caller before the break, who's going to jail? Wasn't it AutoPen or something that gave immunity or clearance here for Dr. Fauci before the Biden administration was over? But many are wondering, when we get to the truth of this and we see so many lives taken, and the truth not getting out, even though it's believed that the pharmaceutical companies execs knew about this. Isn't there culpability somewhere?
Oh, there's most definitely culpability. I think we will see accountability. I think we will see people go to prison. I think it's coming. But we are just 4 months into the new administration. We have been hit on every front possible around the world with urgent problems. And I think all of us need to pray for protection, for guidance and wisdom and strength and courage among President Trump and his cabinet officials who are leading the search for truth and the exposure of hidden documents and secret documents that are exposing the truth, and the Department of Justice that is working to hold people accountable. But look at it this way. These are complex cases. These are serious charges. They take the cases, legal cases like this, a simple criminal case in your community takes hundreds of hours of legal preparation time to prepare for court. These cases are more complex. They involve deeper tentacles of corruption and fraud and, my opinion, crimes against humanity. They're very complex. It's going to take time to build an airtight case, and you're up against very powerful and very evil people. So I want to encourage everyone to keep your prayer warrior hat on, and let's pray that God will guide the efforts of this administration and our leaders to do the right thing, which I think is happening. I think we already see it in many ways, and that we support their efforts with patience and prayer and letting our elected officials know we want accountability. We are in a long ground war.
We are. We're short on time here. Short on time here, Doctor. Randy in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. You're on the air. Your question, please.
Oh yeah, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate the doctor, and I appreciate you, Jim, having programs like this, and I appreciate Ron Johnson.
Okay, right to your question, if you would.
Anyway, my comment is I really appreciate all the medical and biological and chemical facts that are coming out. Mm-hmm. But more than that, when the first COVID vaccines were pushed, just the idea that the government pushed them as being 100% effective and mandating it, that right away raised the red flags to me.
Yes, thank you. And we were told over and over, if you get the shot, you can't get COVID. Doctor, we heard that, and that was totally false.
Well, it was. And remember, the mandates occurred during the Biden administration, and they were unlawful. And Secretary of Defense Hegseth has finally used that word, unlawful mandate.
Mm-hmm.
They are going after that, certainly in the military.
Greg in Nashport, Ohio, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you. If a person that donates blood has affected blood with a COVID shot, can the recipient of that blood be affected by that?
Okay.
Because the hospitals do not test for it, and Red Cross does not either.
Okay, thank you. Doctor?
I think this is a concern, and I think it's unconscionable that the blood banks are not screening the vaccinated people with the COVID shots, because we know the spike protein and lipid nanoparticles can be contaminants of donated blood. I'm very concerned about that. And until we have a critical mass of consumers protesting that, we won't get changes we need.
Greg, thank you for the call. Let's go to Jan in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Valit. I've been listening to you. I was led by God. I prayed about getting the shots, and I was led not to. 2 years later, I find out that it's the clot shot, and God knew me better than I knew myself, because I'm factor V Leiden mutation, and I know you know what that is.
Oh, my heavens. You really would have been seriously...
I dodged a cannon. Thank you, Dr. Valit, and keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Prone to blood clots with her condition. Let's go to Christine in Racine, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
I appreciate you, Dr. Valit, so much. My children back in the day had the MMR shots. They had petit mal seizures from them, and I started researching the VAERS system then, and I knew immediately that there was a problem with this shot. Doctors today, and I have acquaintances who are Christian doctors, and it doesn't matter what you say, they're gonna spew out the narrative, and they get very upset with you. I've had to leave 2 doctors for asking questions in this vein, and it's people better be careful who their healthcare practitioners are, because these people have now, I hate to say this, ma'am, they've become dangerous.
Oh, I quite agree. I'm quite alarmed at what's happened to my profession.
Great. Thank you, Christine, for your call. Dr. Valit, we're just under a minute. What would you like to leave with our listeners on this topic today?
I really would like to emphasize my call for prayer warriors. We need protection and guidance and wisdom for our leaders. We need people to come up and to stand up, be bold, speak the truth, and listen to God's guidance for you and your life and your health, and join us on Faith Over Fear seminars every Tuesday night, where we're giving you guidance on practical tools to stand against the medical profession that isn't doing what it should do and isn't telling you the truth.
Doctor, thank you so much for spending this hour with our listeners here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jim. God bless you for your work.
Dr. Elizabeth Lee Valit, our guest here today, President and CEO of Truth for Health Foundation. And again, friends, you'll find much information on her site, truthforhealth.org. That's truthforhealth.org. And be praying, friends, that the truth will come out through all these committee hearings, and doctors will come forward, and patients come forward, and certainly warn regarding the fallout from this. And certainly, friends, we're concerned as well regarding the World Health Organization. But, friends, make sure, number one, your trust, your faith, your confidence is in the Lord. God bless you, friends. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.